December 1944. Europe was deep in winter, one of the coldest in 100 years. Snowstorms swept across Belgium and Luxembourg, covering forests, towns, and soldiers in white silence. No one knew it yet, but this winter would decide the fate of World War II. And for the American soldiers trapped in the Ardennes forest, it would become a fight not only against the Germans, but against nature itself. The blizzard and the surprise attack. The story begins in mid-December near the small Belgian town of Bastogne. At dawn, German artillery suddenly shattered the quiet. Thousands of shells fell on U.S. positions. From the fog and snow, German tanks and infantry poured forward, launching what would become Hitler's last major offensive of the war. It caught the Allies completely by surprise. The Americans were spread thin and unprepared. Hitler's plan was bold: to break through the Allied line, reach the port of Antwerp, and split the British and American armies in two. If it worked, he could force peace on his terms. At the center of this offensive was the Ardennes forest, a cold, rugged maze of trees, hills, and narrow roads. And right in the path of the attack stood the small town of Bastogne, defended by the 101st Airborne Division, a mix of paratroopers, artillerymen, and support troops. Within days, they were completely surrounded. The town that would not fall. Inside Bastogne, temperatures dropped below freezing. Snow piled high against ruined walls. Food, ammunition, and medicine ran out fast. Every night, German artillery thundered. Every morning, soldiers found new frostbite cases, feet blackened, fingers stiff, rifles frozen. Still, the men held their ground. When German officers demanded their surrender, the American commander, General Anthony McAuliffe, famously replied with a single word: nuts. That one word became a symbol of American defiance. Outside the town, the Germans tightened the noose. Inside, men fought hunger, fear, and the biting cold, wrapping their feet in rags, sleeping in foxholes half filled with ice. Patton's march through hell. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, another American general was already planning a rescue. George S. Patton, commander of the U.S. Third Army, had been facing east when the German attack began. In a move that would later be called a logistical miracle, Patton ordered his entire army, thousands of tanks, trucks, and men, to turn north toward Bastogne. He did it in just 72 hours, through snow, mud, and chaos. Roads became rivers of slush. Tanks froze solid overnight. Engines choked on ice. But Patton's soldiers kept moving, inch by inch, guided only by compasses, headlights, and the belief that someone up ahead needed them. They fought through villages turned into fortresses, through forests filled with hidden landmines. Every mile was paid for in blood and exhaustion. Hope from the sky. For the men trapped in Bastogne, each day felt longer than the last. But on December 23rd, the clouds finally broke. The winter sun pierced the gray sky for the first time in a week, and through that clear sky came the roar of engines, American planes. C-47 transport aircraft dropped food, ammunition, and medical supplies to the starving soldiers. Behind them came fighter bombers, P-47 Thunderbolts, diving low and tearing through German convoys. The defenders cheered as the Luftwaffe disappeared from the sky. For the first time, they believed they might survive. The breakthrough. 3 days later, December 26, 1944, the sound of engines echoed again, this time from the south. At first, the men thought it was another German attack, but then through the snow they saw it, a Sherman tank, its white star shining through the frost. It wasn't German, it was American. Patton's 4th Armored Division had broken through. When the first tanks rolled into Bastogne, the defenders could hardly believe their eyes. Some laughed, others cried. Many were too weak to stand. They had been surrounded for nearly 2 weeks, surviving on courage and willpower alone. That day, the siege was broken, but the battle was far from over. Aftermath of the Bulge. By January 1945, the snow still fell softly over the Ardennes. The guns were finally quiet. Bastogne was a ruin, a town of shattered buildings, burnt tanks, and frozen bodies. Over 19,000 Americans had been killed across the Ardennes. Thousands more were missing, captured, or frostbite beyond recognition. The men who walked out of Bastogne were not the same as those who entered. They were thinner, older, silent, their faces marked by frost and exhaustion. The Battle of the Bulge, as it came to be known, was the largest and bloodiest battle ever fought by the U.S. Army. And yet, it was also its finest hour. Because when everything froze, when every instinct screamed to retreat, they stood. The Taw and the Legacy. As January went on, the snow began to melt. The forests that had been silent for weeks now revealed the wreckage hidden beneath. Tanks half buried in ice, trucks burned to husks, footprints that ended abruptly in the drifts. The Taw brought no joy, only the smell of smoke and the sight of what survival had cost. But from that same Taw came rebirth. Roads reopened, reinforcements arrived. The German offensive, Hitler's final gamble, had failed. The Allied line had bent but never broke. Bastogne became a symbol of resilience, of courage that outlasted the cold. Across America, headlines called it the miracle of Bastogne. Families prayed for their sons, and for those who survived, their letters home were short but powerful. We made it. We're still here. The coldest winter. The men of Bastogne would carry the memories of that winter for the rest of their lives. They remembered the silence after the shelling, the stars that looked close enough to touch, and the feeling that every heartbeat was an act of defiance. In the end, it wasn't firepower that won the Battle of the Bulge. It was willpower. The will to stand when everything froze. The will to fight when hope seemed lost. The will to survive the coldest winter of the war and emerge victorious. That winter, America didn't just fight. It endured. In Bastogne, courage wasn't a word. It was a choice, made one frozen heartbeat at a time.